Dear Santa, please send me a dad. Her letter to Santa ended up on the desk of a lonely billionaire. The snowstorm that covered New York City that December night felt almost symbolic, like the whole world was trying to hide its loneliness beneath a white blanket. High above the sparkling city lights, in a corner office that looked more like a glass fortress than a workplace, billionaire entrepreneur Nicholas Hale sat alone, staring at a stack of mail he didn't remember asking for. He had built his empire out of cold numbers, hard walls, and the unspoken rule that feelings were luxuries he couldn't afford. But destiny, disguised in a small crumpled envelope decorated with childish doodles, was about to knock on the thick barrier he had built around his heart. The letter was addressed not to him, but to Santa Claus, yet somehow, impossibly, it had ended up on his desk. And the moment he opened it, a single sentence shattered the silence of his luxurious loneliness. Dear Santa, please send me a dad. Backhand index pointing right. If you believe in kindness, miracles, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and reach more hearts. Nicholas read those words again and again, as though his mind wasn't prepared to process them the first time. Attached to the letter was a drawing, a little girl with messy braids holding the hand of a woman he assumed was her mother, and next to them, a blank space, an empty stick figure with no details, just the outline of the father she wished she had. Nicholas wasn't a man easily shaken. He had survived corporate battles, betrayal, loneliness, and the heavy memory of a childhood he preferred to forget. But this letter hit him in a place he hadn't touched in years, a part of him he thought had died long ago. The mailroom explained later that the letter probably arrived mixed in with a charity foundation drop-off. But Nicholas barely heard them. Because in that moment, the billionaire who could buy anything felt powerless in front of 4 words written in a trembling child's handwriting. It reminded him of himself, years ago, writing to Santa for parents who never came back, and never receiving a reply. For a moment, he felt 10 years old again, lost in a world that had no space for a grieving child. As the snow outside intensified, Nicholas found himself unable to focus on his business reports, contracts, or investment plans. He kept thinking about the letter. Who was this girl? What had she gone through? Why would she write to Santa asking for something so simple, yet so heartbreakingly impossible? He wanted to forget the letter. He wanted to throw it away, push it off his desk, pretend it never reached him. But he couldn't. Not this time. Something inside him, something long abandoned, was pushing him to find her. Across the city, in a tiny apartment dimly lit by a flickering Christmas tree, Emily Carter, a 7-year-old girl with bright hopeful eyes, sat beside her mother, Grace, a hardworking waitress who carried exhaustion beneath her warm smile. Emily didn't know her letter had ended up on the desk of one of the richest men in America. She didn't know her life was about to collide with his in a way no one could have predicted. Grace was the kind of woman who gave everything without expecting anything back. She had sold her engagement ring years ago to pay rent, had worked double shifts to keep Emily's world stable, and had hidden her tears behind bathroom doors so her daughter never saw how broken their life sometimes felt. Grace didn't know about the letter Emily had sent secretly that morning. She didn't know her daughter had asked Santa for a dad because she saw her mother struggling alone, and because every Christmas felt incomplete without someone to stand beside them. Emily's innocence didn't understand the complexity of adulthood. She simply believed that Santa fixed broken hearts if you asked him kindly enough. Meanwhile, Nicholas couldn't sleep. The letter haunted him. He tried distracting himself by going through reports, attending meetings, reviewing financial forecasts, but the words kept echoing. He had everything the world admired, wealth, power, reputation, but none of it mattered when he came home to an empty penthouse night after night. He had no wife, no children, no family waiting for him. And for the first time, he felt the weight of what he didn't have more than the pride of what he did. Something inside him finally broke. He made a decision. He would find this girl. Using his resources, he traced the charity batch that the letter came from, and after several calls, he managed to locate Emily's neighborhood. It surprised him, a modest, working-class area far from the polished glass towers of his world. The next morning, he drove there in a simple car, dressed not like a billionaire, but like an ordinary man trying to blend into a life he had never known. When he reached the address, he saw Emily and her mother stepping out of their apartment. Grace looked exhausted but graceful, wearing a worn coat and holding Emily's hand tightly. Emily was humming a Christmas tune, unaware of the storms her letter had stirred. Nicholas watched them from a distance, feeling something strange, something he hadn't felt in years. He followed them discreetly as they walked to the bus stop. Grace carried a lunchbox and a stack of papers, probably bills. Emily skipped beside her, trying to make her mom smile. The simplicity of their life contrasted sharply with Nicholas's world of wealth and privilege. When Emily dropped her mitten, Nicholas instinctively stepped forward, picking it up and handing it to her. Grace thanked him politely but warily, her protective instincts rising immediately. Nicholas introduced himself simply as Nick, avoiding mention of who he really was. Grace didn't recognize him. Nicholas Hale rarely appeared in public outside business events, and Grace didn't have time to follow billionaire gossip anyway. Over the following days, Nicholas found himself returning to their neighborhood. At first, he felt guilty. Was he intruding? Was this inappropriate? But every time he saw Emily's bright smile or Grace's tired face soften into a warm grin, something inside him healed. He began helping in small ways, carrying groceries, paying for a meal anonymously, leaving winter coats outside their door without signing his name. But this wasn't enough. He wanted to know them, really know them. And soon enough, as fate would have it, Grace and Nicholas began talking. Simple conversations at first, about weather, about Emily's school, about Grace's work. Grace found him unusually kind, thoughtful, and respectful. And Nicholas found himself opening up in ways he never had before. As days passed, Nicholas grew closer to them. He began spending time with Emily, who adored him instantly. He helped her with homework, listened to her stories, and made her laugh with small magic tricks. Grace watched them together with a mix of warmth and fear. She didn't know who this man really was, but she couldn't deny the goodness he brought into their lives. Nicholas didn't tell them about the letter, not yet. He didn't want Grace to think he had approached them out of pity. He didn't want Emily to feel embarrassed or responsible. He wanted them to know him by his heart, not his wealth or power. But as Christmas approached, the truth weighed heavier on him. He knew he had to confess eventually. What he didn't expect was how deeply he had fallen for both of them. Emily felt like the daughter he never had. Grace felt like the home he had always dreamed of but never believed he deserved. On Christmas Eve, Nicholas found himself standing outside their apartment again. This time, he carried a small box, not expensive jewelry, not lavish gifts, but something far more meaningful, the original letter Emily had written. His hands trembled slightly. He knew everything might change after this. Inside, Grace and Emily were decorating a small tree. The moment they saw Nicholas at the door, Emily ran to him with excitement. Grace smiled, though her eyes revealed uncertainty. Nicholas took a deep breath and sat with them. He handed the crumpled letter to Grace. The moment she recognized her daughter's handwriting, tears filled her eyes. Grace asked quietly, almost shaking, how he got the letter. Nicholas explained everything, the mail mix-up, his reaction, his search for them. Grace listened, stunned, overwhelmed. Emily looked confused at first, then embarrassed, then hopeful. Nicholas confessed that meeting them had changed him, that their kindness, warmth, and love had filled a void he had ignored for too long. He told Grace that he didn't want to replace anyone or force his way into their life, but if they would let him, he wanted to stay. Not as a billionaire, not as a charity worker, but as someone who finally understood what family meant. Grace cried openly, not out of fear, but relief. For years, she had carried the weight of the world alone. For years, Emily had dreamed quietly of having a father. And now, Fate had brought this man into their lives not by